We're back for your ears only. I'm Melissa Axelberth.
I'm David Alpern with this quote from the news. "I'm not a diplomat. I'm a revolutionary and speak frankly and directly." That was Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, rejecting a U.S. offer of direct talks to end Tehran's nuclear program, even as Washington further escalated economic sanctions. A larger meeting on the issue with Russia and China is still scheduled in Kazakhstan later this month. Now this.
My question is, did anybody leave any base anywhere to go to the aid of the people under attack in Benghazi, Libya, before the attack ended?
No, because the attack ended before they could get off the ground.
We are sowing the wind in Syria, and we're going to reap the whirlwind. And that whirlwind will be the increased presence of al-Qaeda and Islamist groups, which are now flooding into Syria.
I think there's a misimpression on the part of some American people who believe that we take strikes to punish terrorists for past transgressions. Nothing could be further from the truth. We only take such actions as a last resort to save lives.
The ghost of Libya continued to haunt leaders of Congress and the administration last week. At a Senate hearing, South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham flayed departing Defense Secretary Leon Panetta and General Martin Dempsey, the Joint Chiefs of Staff chairman, over a lack of quick response to last year's fatal 9/11 anniversary attack by Islamists on the consulate in Benghazi. And Arizona Republican John McCain got both men to admit that their support for arming select rebel groups in blood-soaked Syria had been overruled by the White House, already aware of the violence unleashed by what had been considered successful U.S. participation in helping rebel forces end the regime of Muammar Gaddafi.
The other military defense issue of the week, as we mentioned in the last segment, was President Obama's stepped-up use of killer drones in the war on terror. The leak of a classified document summarizing the secret ground rules for drone deployment, including an alarmingly elastic definition of imminent threat, forced the administration to make the fuller legal justification available to senators at the confirmation hearing for White House counterterrorism advisor John Brennan, the master of U.S. targeted killing, now nominated to be CIA director.
To consider these and related issues for your ears only, we're joined again by Dr. James Corum, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, co-author of the Army's 2006 Counter-Insurgency Doctrine, and now working with NATO forces as Dean of the Baltic Defense College in Estonia. His books include Bad Strategies, How Great Powers Fail in Counter-Insurgency from Zenith Press. Welcome back to the program.
It's good to be here.
Let's start with Benghazi. At the time you wrote about a likely CIA failure to infiltrate hostile groups or analyze their danger, does it now seem more a State Department failure to appreciate earlier Islamist attacks on Western targets and actual requests for more security from our own embassy in Libya?
Well, when Hillary Clinton said that she does not read all of the cables that come in from ambassadors, which of course not, but her staff should be reading this. In many cases, you are only as good as your staff. It is her responsibility because if you, when you are a cabinet member or a four-star general, and your staff fails you, that is your failure. But this was a grade A disaster, and then ever since September, they've lied about it.
A rapid response force shared by the Pentagon's Africa and European commands was actually training not all that far from you in Croatia. Should it have been deployed closer to the Middle East for the 9/11 anniversary, just on the face of it, would even that have permitted timely intervention in Benghazi?
Well, I don't know about 9/11 force. If you want to get somebody there fast, you call in the U.S. Air Force or U.S. Navy carrier. Now, in Aviano, Italy, now we're talking about an hour and a half flight time, we have 42 F-16s. If there was a range problem, they could have gone with lighter bomb loads. They could have staged out of Sigonella Naval Air Station, which is a U.S. base on the east coast of Sicily. That's only a short hop to Benghazi. Now, the idea that with 42 combat aircraft, that with 7 hours, that we couldn't find a couple pilots, maybe nobody was on alert, maybe they were all at their diversity training seminar for the week or something. But the idea is that with that kind of combat power that could have delivered PGMs, and remember, we have people on the ground communicating who could have given us the building locations, map coordinates. We could have sent those to the pilots en route and loaded up the JDAMs with that information, and it has a less than 10-meter circle error probability So they're incredibly accurate, and we could have had bombs on target.
But would those jets have really been effective against the kind of militia fighters that were attacking the embassy or the consulate, I should say?
Because those guys could have said they're coming from this and that building. They were in communication.
Uh-huh.
We could have gone to a map, gotten the grid coordinates, and loaded the grid coordinates. That's what a JDAM is for.
That's a special missile.
The things are damned accurate, and they're used in close air support in this manner. This is a standard. This is what our military is trained to do.
An underlying lesson from Libya is that supporting regime change in the Islamic world can increase the danger to U.S. interests, empowering hostile groups and proliferating modern weapons, most recently from Libya to Mali and Algeria. Was this something your NATO students were aware of, even as some of them worked in the alliance against Gaddafi?
These would have been actually. We had just graduated some people who went down there, and they would have had some staff positions doing this. They aren't NATO students. They belong to NATO countries. They're students mostly from the 3 Baltic countries. Frankly, I haven't talked to any of our grads recently about Benghazi, but it is interesting. The militaries, the Baltic regional, have not talked much about the Libya issue. However, I believe it was the foreign minister or defense minister of Estonia said that he supported and strongly encouraged that the European Union very quickly put together support for Mali and that Estonia would support it.
And how does the Libya experience shape your position on the idea of U.S. arming rebels in Syria?
Well, you have to be very careful about arming rebels. We have had real problems with our human intelligence for more than a decade. I mean, 9/11 was a failure of human intelligence because we weren't following. We didn't have people on the ground in Afghanistan. That's a place where we should have been sending guns to the Northern Alliance before 9/11 because the Taliban was openly supporting war against the U.S. I mean, that's a clear-cut case where we do this. On the other hand, intervening in somebody's civil war that does not directly affect your security or the security of your immediate allies, this is really something that you have to be careful about. I think that the regime in Syria is a horrendously evil regime and is very likely to be replaced by something even worse. Since the New York Times pointed out we apparently armed rebels in Libya, if I'd been in the decision-making process, I would have advised against us. As evil as Gaddafi was, we're very likely to get something worse in Libya. That's the problem.
Dr. James Corum is a retired lieutenant colonel, co-author of the Army's 2006 Counter-Insurgency Doctrine, now working with NATO forces as Dean of the Baltic Defense College in Estonia. His books include Bad Strategies, How Great Powers Fail in Counterinsurgency from Zenith Press.
Quote from the news, the process is so traumatic that in some cases the children are better off not reporting. That was Minkashi Ganguly, South Asia Director of Human Rights Watch, on a report that found widespread sexual abuse of minors in families, schools, and other institutions. The Indian government, meanwhile, went ahead with a fast-track court for assaults on women following widespread protests over the fatal gang rape of a 23-year-old on a bus in New Delhi.
Next, immigration reform, gun safety, and the national ID debate for your ears only.